let me apologize. I'm slightly bummed. YouTube won't let me zoom in any more than I can. So we have to deal with it. I had a nice, I do have the slideshow prepared for you. It's just that the screenshot isn't as lovely as it was when I could zoom in. So anyway, I want to share with you guys today some evidence, the evidence that I'm always talking about that proves that there was a purposeful breakdown at Paisley Park, that it wasn't what the media sold. I have this magazine pulled up because the media tells one story. And that is, of course, we all know that Prince was suffering from addiction due to the traumatic performances and having hip surgery and et cetera, et cetera. So they told us that he was taking Vicodin, and that Vicodin was laced with fentanyl unbeknownst to him. And therefore he died after his friends rushed out to get Dr. Howard Kornfeld to help him. He wasn't available. They reached out to Dr. Schulenberg for some Percocet, and he was fined $30,000 for that. It was said that Kirk ascertained that in his name for Prince. That's what they said. And then everybody showed up on the 21st and he was dead. Okay, so that's what this magazine says, and that's the lie. Howard Kornfeld, I'm going to introduce to you the characters and prove to you the breakdown based on some evidence. Of course, they sell him as an opioid addiction specialist who runs Recovery Without Walls in Mill Valley, California. Now, he confirmed to the Minneapolis Star-Tribune that Kornfeld was called by Prince's staff on April 20th because Prince was dealing with a grave medical emergency. Notice with the lies that are hidden in plain sight, the way that the article is written. Howard Kornfeld was called, listen, it says Howard Kornfeld confirmed that Kornfeld was called by Prince's staff on April 20th. So right there, we know that we're dealing with two different Kornfelds. Otherwise, just watch how they write the articles, you guys. It's the truth. So anyway, grave emergency. This is Mill Valley, California, Recovery Without Walls. Okay. Now, the article reads that Mr. Dr. Howard Kornfeld says that when acute detoxification treatment is required, we arrange 24-hour nursing care supervised by Dr. Kornfeld. I know you guys can't see that. This is a part of the investigation that it says during the early morning hours of 4/21/16 at 3:41 a.m., Kirk Johnson sends Prince an email which states, "We have doctor working on all care needed in-house." That sounds like 24-hour supervised care to me. Kornfeld, unable to immediately make the trip, had sent his son to encourage the singer to seek treatment. Howard Kornfeld planned to arrive on April 22nd. So, of course, this is Andrew Kornfeld. We have a little story to tell about him. His address, and again, sorry about the zoom, y'all, is 4590 Santa Rita Road. Okay, that's his home address. And again, we confirm it here and note that he is also related to Howard Kornfeld. There's Santa Rita Road. Now, Andrew told me he works with his father, but he also has his own company, Practitioners Plus LLC. He told me his company is a medical marketing and consulting company. He said he operates the business from his home residence in California. Now let's remember his home residence is 4590 Santa Rita Road. His LLC that Phadrae and Diane Frappier and Phadrae Ellis Lamkins helped everybody set up the LLCs throughout the file. This is Andrew's, and you can see that he uses the name, or excuse me, the address 5900 Hollis Street, Suite W. Okay, so that's definitely not his home address where he runs his home business. And this is Hollis Street, you guys. Pretty attractive, right? It looks like a broke down, slummy area. So it looks condemned as if nobody's there. And of course, that's where we're to believe he ran his business from. Okay. Now, while Patrick Murphy is interviewing Andrew, he says, "Do you hold a medical degree like your dad?" Or, "I don't." "You don't?" "I'm pre-med." "Pre-med?" Andrew says, "Yeah." Okay, so you're working on it, Patrick Murphy says. And Andrew says, yeah, I'm working on it. I just took my MCAT exam. Now, this is how we know there's dual identities and dual files used, not only names, clones, body doubles, etc. This is part of the investigation where it reads, Andrew is a graduate of the University of California at Santa Cruz, where he studied both neuroscience and psychology. At UCSC, Andrew received the Award of Special Achievement for the Department of Psychology and the Dean's Award in Undergraduate Education. Now, it says he's a consultant at Recovery Without Walls, working with his father, New Patient Services, and has even co-authored papers with his father, Dr. Howard Kornfeld. Now, his interests in brain science and psychopharmacology, they complement his work at Recovery Without Walls. He recently co-authored one chapter in the Handbook on Transpersonal Psychology, published by Wiley. And he wrote his undergraduate thesis on the neuroscience of psychological trauma and novel treatments for the brain. You guys, so this Andrew that they're interviewing in file number 160125559, he hasn't even no medical degree, pre-med. You can see that this Andrew has lots of kudos. So who are we talking about here, folks? Now, when Andrew was being interviewed, they asked for his backpack, and during that backpack interview, it says here that they wore latex gloves and they found a number of pills. Basically, I'm going to skim. It says that they found Suboxone, Ativan, and suppositories. So down bottom left, it says bupropion, lorazepam, and the suppositories were promethazine. And those are to make it so that you don't throw up when you're taking a bunch of narcotics. So Andrew, who came to the scene, had these in his backpack. And then Patrick goes on to interview him and says, okay, do you have any other medications on your person? No. Or anything else like that? No, just one little bag. Pardon me, just one little bag. Interesting to know that this is after they explored the backpack, and then he asked if he had any medications on his person. So he had a bag on his person as well. This is the book that he had on him. It talks about psychedelic adventures using DMT, lucid dreaming, using drugs and ecstasy and different things like that. The brain, psychopharmacology, neuroscience that Andrew's interested in. So even though he's not a doctor and his father sent him out because he couldn't make it, he had these drugs in this book: blood pressure cuff, O2 sensor, oxygen sensor. So what I'm telling you is that both Howard and Andrew were there. This is Howard Kornfeld's address in New York. Okay. Notice that it's 16th, New York, New York. Okay. Doesn't say Dr. Howard Kornfeld. It just says Howard because there are dual folks going on here. Now, when Andrew is being interviewed, Patrick Murphy says, and just so that I understand, when you reference your dad, is your dad a doctor at the facility? Andrew says, yeah. So this is my dad right there. Oh, okay. So Howard Kornfeld? Yeah, he never talked to Prince. So Andrew ID'd Howard right at the scene. Interesting to know that there's New York keys here with an LA Fitness tag, which is, of course, Kirk's LA Fitness, because he was flying around the Dassault Falcon 990 that belonged to Lifetime Fitness that they chartered out when it wasn't in use. Anyway, also, you guys, with the New York keys and Howard Kornfeld having a New York phone number and address, it's interesting to note that it says during the analysis of phone records at Paisley Park on 4/21, we observed one number that called 28 times between the hour of 12 and 12:50. The phone number was believed to belong to a pharmacist in New York named Andrew Reinhardt. Now, interesting that they say believed to belong to a pharmacist, because it seems like something you'd want to be accurate on. So they go and they interview Andrew, and then it says DEA Jeff Voller, who interviewed Andrew, called him a super fan. He did not know Prince personally, and after hearing about Prince's death, apparently Andrew Reinhardt, the pharmacist, was in disbelief and located several public numbers online and called Paisley Park 28 times. That's what they want us to believe, okay? Now, also, this is a text from Kirk where he is supposedly contacting, they want us to believe that he's contacting Dr. Schulenberg, telling him we are supposed to fly out today for a show. He might have some other issues, I think. If you call me when able, you can tell that it's cut conversation, but my point is this. Doctor, give me first name. Always say last name. It has slipped my brain. Now, what's crucially important about that is Dr. Schulenberg tells us, as does Kirk, that Kirk has been Schulenberg's patient for 16 years. Kirk is not going to forget Dr. Schulenberg's name, Michael, after 16 years, nor is he going to always say last name. He's talking to the dual Kornfelds, Howard and Andrew. That's what this text is. Now, I went ahead and I looked up San Fran is here, Recovery Without Walls, and across the bridge there is Andrew's residence, as well as Berkeley College and Oakland, California. Okay, that's important because Recovery Without Walls, hop, skip, and jump away from Andrew. And also these keys were photographed at the scene from the Oakland Public Library, and it has a Berkeley Public Library tag on it as well. Doesn't mean they're Andrew's, because Phadrae was there too. Kirk said Prince's manager was Phadrae Ellis Lamkins, who had taken another job in California a year prior and had not yet been replaced. Now, when they were in Oakland, California here doing the piano and a microphone tour, that's when supposedly Prince went and wore the dark sunglasses at the basketball game there in Oakland. Phadrae was busy filing the articles of incorporation for NPG for being the Administration of Music Publishing. You can see there bottom left, the date is 12/1/2015. Top of the screen, you can see her address is 1611 Telegraph, Oakland, California. Now, that was in December, and then they were all parlaying there in February, March, doing the Welcome to Canada and piano and microphone tours at the same time. But notice the address, it's 1611, which Howard Kornfeld's was 1616, because it's an upside down 911 in the gematria we always talk about. Anyway, this is the first time she filed for articles of incorporation, and the second time she filed, which was on 1/25/2016. I don't know why she would have to turn around and file them so quickly. She filed with the address of 7801 Audubon. So as Kirk testified to, she hadn't been replaced from when she was previously fired, and then they're finagling the NPG articles of incorporation when she just filed them 12/1/2015 with the Telegraph address in Oakland, and then 1/25/2016 with the Audubon address. So, again, part of the breakdown. And then, of course, this is the copyright assignment, which it says that Prince R. Nelson, doing business as Controversy Music, hereby irrevocably, blah, blah, blah. I'm going to skim all the words. Irrevocably, blah, blah, blah. I'm going to leave that alone. I need some coffee. Anyway, my point is, you guys, Prince R. Nelson, doing business as Controversy Music. Now, who is Prince R. Nelson? We don't know. Anyway, they want us to believe in the People magazine that they were so worried about Mr. Prince that they called up Howard Kornfeld and got him on the line and come save Prince and all this and that. But Kieran Shaw, who was an assistant at Paisley Park, was interviewed, and she said that Phadrae's sister had previously suffered from drug addiction and received treatment from Dr. Kornfeld and Recovery Without Walls, that had been the connection between the two. And Phadrae had set it up after her sister had gone there. That's what Kieran said. So I don't know why someone would lie about that. It's noteworthy that it says, I also learned that Kieran was told Phadrae and Kirk had taken out 8 garbage bags of shredded documents from Paisley Park after law enforcement had cleared the scene on 4/21/16. So anyway, staying on track. Andrew is still being interviewed, and he says, Kirk and Marone, we had breakfast together. And then they were like, okay, let's just go over there. And I said, okay. And I was kind of just expecting to show Prince a brochure and talk to him, We were just going to, possibly have his jet fly out. You mean the Lifetime Fitness Dassault Falcon 990? Yep, well, I can understand that. And do you remember when you left your hotel to come out here? Now, this answer is different than what he just said because it's widely publicized that Kirk and Marone picked up Andrew from the airport and then, as Andrew reported, leisurely had breakfast together as they were so urgent to go check on Prince, right? So they're having breakfast together. Now, this, I believe, is Howard Kornfeld answering because he says, so I got a car. They called some car for me to be in the hotel. I talked with them. We met at the hotel, Kirk, and I'm forgetting the girl's name. Yeah, okay, that doesn't sound like somebody being picked up by at the airport at 6:22, okay? It sounds like somebody else got somebody else a car and didn't have breakfast together. So anyway, this is also important. It's all important. Do you remember what time you guys got out there roughly? Yeah, to his house? You mean to Paisley? Yep, to Paisley Park. Now, what's important, you guys, is when you go through the file, there is a death incident at Paisley Park, and then there's also a death reported at the residence. So it's important to know that as they're speaking, he says to his house, you mean to Paisley, and then Patrick Murphy quickly corrects him to Paisley Park. Now, he's saying they got there about 9:15, give or take. Andrew was saying this, and he was sitting in a room with Rona. Now, we would assume he's talking about Marone, but he's calling her Rona, which sounds like a nickname of somebody he knows pretty well. And do you know how long it was between the time that you were waiting and the time that he was discovered? I mean, was it a couple of minutes? 15 minutes. Oh, do you think it was that long? Yeah, 10 to 15 minutes. Patrick says just because they were having a hard time finding him. Andrew says this, and very important. And Kirk came back and was like nervous because he didn't want to interrupt Prince or something like that. So do you think Kirk found him first and then, and I think Kirk, you think Kirk what, Andrew? Then Patrick says Marone went with him, and then he says, I think Kirk found him first and then Marone went with him. And he continues, he understands that when you get people that are high profile, you're trying to keep law enforcement away. You're trying to keep the medics away if they're having a medical emergency to get them to a facility. Andrew says, sure. Now, Patrick says something really interesting here, you guys, that lets you know that Carver is involved. Maybe a little bit more private. Sometimes people try to intervene, sure. And so that would be one of the questions that I have is, Andrew says, I wouldn't try. Did somebody try to intervene? No. If they discovered him, no. And things were going bad and somebody tried to intervene by giving him something? What are you talking about intervening? You guys, what's intervening? That's a far cry from saving somebody's life, isn't it? Discovering him and intervening. Why would you be worried about all that? Now, Andrew goes on to say, yeah, and then, they were looking a little nervous, and then they went to go check, look around for him, and then I heard a scream. I decided, okay, I'm just going to run in there, and I dialed 9. I saw him on the ground, and I dialed 911, I didn't know where I was, so that was kind of hard. Well, ta-da, here's the 911 report, you guys, and this is truly intriguing because the way the media tells it, Andrew ran in there and found Prince dead, okay? And then even though the file already proved that Andrew had all the narcotics on him, by law, they said it didn't matter that he had the narcotics on him because he called 911. Therefore, he qualified for the Minnesota statute of the Good Samaritan law, which clearly he does not, because he said that Kirk went and found Prince first, and then Kirk came back and got Marone, and then they went in, and then they heard a scream, and then he ran in and called 911. Well, if you look up your statutes, you know that that does not qualify for him for the Good Samaritan law. You have to be the first person to find the deceased or the overdose person, and there's a lot of other things, but clearly being the third person to find him does not qualify him. Okay, so I just want to mention that because it's truly important. Now, when this person, whoever it is that calls 911, where's your emergency? Let me say this first. For those of you that don't know, this 911 call was reportedly taken by a lady named Emily Colestock. She has 2 teenagers. She has lived in Minnesota almost all her life and knows of Paisley Park, has sent rescue and police out there numerous times. She even knows the address by heart. Her children know who Prince is. She knows who Prince is. Yet and still, when they go through this 911 report, they want you to believe that she needs a piece of mail. So for those of you that haven't seen it, I'm going to skim. 911, where's your emergency? Oh, hi, we need what's your address? We need an emergency ambulance right now. We have someone who's unconscious. Okay, what's the address? Okay, 6th line in, he says, we're at Prince's house. Bam, she should have known the address right there. But instead she says, okay, does anybody know the address? Is there any mail that you could look around at? Yeah, looking around for mail. And she says something interesting. Okay, your cell phone's not going to tell me where you're at. So I need you to find me an address. So the person is dead here. Okay, get me the address, please. Okay, I'm working on it. Concentrate on that. And the people are just distraught. I understand that they are distraught. I'm working on it. Okay, do we know how the person died? Now, interesting. 4th line, we have someone who is unconscious. 6th line, we're at Prince's house. 10th line, we have someone who is dead here. Do we know how the person died? I don't know. Okay, so you're in Minnesota. Are you sure you're in Minnesota? Emily Colstock says. He just said he's at Prince's house. Are you sure you're in Minnesota? Okay. Anyway, have you found an address yet? Yeah, I'm sorry. What's the address here? And the unidentified people in the background say 7801 Paisley Park. We're at Paisley Park. And then she says, Emily Colstock finally says, you're at Paisley Park. Okay, that's in Chanhassen. Are you with the person who's, yes, it's Prince. Okay, stay on the line with me. And then somebody else comes on that says, ambulance, Shirley. Carver with the transfer to Paisley Park Studios. Paisley Park, okay, blah, 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 address. We have a person down, not breathing. So they said the person was dead 3 times. But right here, Emily reports that we have a person down, not breathing. After being told the person was unconscious, the person is dead here. And do we know how the person died? She goes on to tell Shirley that they have an unconscious person down, not breathing. Yep, not breathing. And then the last page, I know it's small, it says, okay, go ahead. We're going to get everybody. And then it says, yeah, Kaylee, this is Shirley at Ridgeview. You can cancel anybody going to Autobahn. Confirmed DOA. Okay, thank you. Bye. Now, before I go on, you guys need to know something. The reason that she couldn't find him by cell phone is because they use those transferable GPS SIM cards. That's how Renville Wellington and Kim Pratt's phone records got all mixed up, and I believe what they did here. They obviously are splicing and dicing some 911 calls because you had 3 times somebody say that the person is dead, twice that they were unconscious and not breathing, and then you still have them canceling the ambulance to Autobahn, yet every single investigation report says that Ridgeview ambulance was there with EMTs. So, makes for a hell of a story, doesn't it? Anyway, moving on. We're going to bust to the prescription area of my little slideshow. When they're interviewing people on the scene, this police officer says, after completing the interviews with Kirk and Tyka, he met with Kirk in the entryway. Kirk advised his Aunt Charlene arrived on scene to offer comfort as she was Kirk's closest relative. So Aunt Charlene would be willing to take me to Kirk's house to obtain the prescriptions which were given to Prince the day prior. Kirk told his Aunt Charlene that there would be 3 bottles in the kitchen cupboard closest to the garage door and provided her with the entry pad code to get in. So the police officer and Charlene left Paisley Park at 1:46 and they went to Kirk's house and got 3 prescription bottles out of the cupboard. This says, other than the 2 prescription bottles in Kirk Johnson's name, in which one contained suspected oxycodone, the suitcase was filled with toiletries such as hair color, hairspray, mouthwash, Band-Aids, nasal spray, etc. I observed in writings and notes scattered throughout Prince's residence that he would often write words using abbreviations such as you, written as you, and therefore, you guys, in the suitcase where they say this evidence was, the officer writes, I believed, based on those writings of the lyrics of You Got the Look, that the suitcase belonged to Prince. Even though there was 2 prescription bottles with Kirk Johnson's name in which one contained suspected oxycodone. Now here is Carver's DEA report. Says was a yellow pill found on the bottom of the black bag, which was observed what they call Prince's bed, and was seen on the hospital surveillance video during the overdose in Moline and carried by Kirk Johnson. The pill was tested and contained oxycodone. Here's the suitcase with Kirk Johnson's CVS pill containers in which they found and tested oxycodone. You saw it with your own eyes, okay? And then you have the black-haired eye because somebody's pretending to be Prince. And then based on the lyrics being written to You Got the Look, they wanted to call that Prince suitcase. Now, continuing with the evidence, this one says CVS pharmacy bottle under the name of Kirk Johnson with said name, vitamin D2, which contained 7 green capsules with the imprint 194 and 8 orange oval pills. The prescription bottle was located inside a suitcase in the mirror room, joining the green room on the 2nd floor. The Bayer bottle with the 64.5 white pills with the inscription 853, the CVS bottle under the name of Kirk Johnson with the name Ondansetron 8 HCl, containing 10 white round pills with the inscription A349. All of these pills are Kirk's. They are all Kirk's. And not only are they from the famous Walgreens where we see Prince pacing, they're from CVS. Okay. Now, also interesting to note here on the bottom that this is a list of evidence that they located the Recovery Without Walls pamphlet in the Purple Rain room, which is located on the main level where Andrew said he was not. These are the pill bottles. They're, of course, CVS pharmacy with the name of Kirk Johnson. And even though they say vitamin D2, they contained other pills. The pills they scattered around Paisley Park and in the Bayer bottle. Now, here we have Hayes and I returned to Paisley Park at 2:10. I requested Hennepin County crime scene tech Sarah Buck to photograph the prescription bottles. You might want to listen up and check this out. I noted that all 3 prescriptions were written in the name Prince Roger Nelson's name on 4/20/16. One of the prescriptions was for diazepam, which is Valium. The other for hydroxine and clonidine. So, notice this is what's important. This officer says the name was Prince Roger Nelson on the 3 bottles. When you look at these bottles, it is clear to see that they say Prince R. Nelson. Who is he to assume in a technical no stone unturned investigation? It clearly says Prince R. Nelson. Okay? It does not say Prince Roger Nelson's name on the 3 bottles, as you attested to. Okay? Now, what's interesting too is here is another text from Kirk in which he is asking, could we come in tomorrow night after hours, do any blood tests we can? Please give me a time. I would love for you to be there with us. Now, doctor, am I supposed to take all 3 of these meds? There are 3 bottles. Oh, never mind. 3 bottles. Kirk. Now, also interesting to note, and I'm not going to go too deep on it, is the fact that they want you to believe that Prince was a Kingdom Hall participant in which they wouldn't just be willy-nilly doing blood work or willy-nilly prescribing all these drugs. Just a side note. Anyway, these are antibiotics. These are the pills that they show as being the drugs, but all of these drugs came out of Kirk Johnson's pill, the vitamin D2 bottle. And as I'll prove to you in a moment, there's more. Now, this is from the DEA. On May 18th, the DEA prepared a federal search warrant affidavit for Minnesota Prescription Monitoring Program. I mentioned this before. They have their opioid monitoring program, and it's called Minnesota Prescription Monitoring, or PMP. Now, when they wrote that, they asked for the prescribing history they blanked it out right here, and Prince Rogers Nelson. Okay. So it's important to know, because they are using all these different names. The actual Minnesota Prescription Monitoring pulled Prince Rogers Nelson name, and in the investigation file it said there was no known prescriptions in his name with the Rogers. Okay, I just couldn't find it for this file. Now, what's interesting also, you guys, is even though the Minnesota monitoring program is the legal way to get the information, in the file we're provided this willy-nilly Health Information Designs Inc. Minnesota Query Report Patient RX History for Kirk Johnson. Okay, and it says that he got oxycodone and acetaminophen with codeine on the 14th, which was from Dr. Schulenberg and from the dentist, Dr. Boo. However, in the People magazine, they never tell you about Dr. Boo. It is a part of the investigation file, and I've talked about it before, and we'll talk about it some more. But my main point is that the Minnesota monitoring program and this Minnesota query report that is provided to us as part of the investigation file, they're two very different things. This is a cheesy LLC DBA. So anyway, more evidence. I then looked at the medical records for Kirk Johnson pertaining to what Dr. Schulenberg admitted to me in his statement. Dr. Schulenberg advised Kirk called wanting to get something for Prince because his hip was hurting. Dr. Schulenberg admitted to ordering Percocet for Prince, but placing the medication in Kirk's name. I looked at the report for Kirk, and it showed that on 4/14 that Kirk did make contact with Dr. Schulenberg and the medication was approved. Now, the note that Dr. Schulenberg took said patient called and is leaving town for Atlanta leaving town for Atlanta and concerned because he hurt his back lifting equipment. So even though he said that Kirk said that Prince's hip was hurting, he wrote that this patient needed Percocet because he hurt his back lifting equipment. So there's another lie. Was wondering if he could get something. I've known him for 15 plus years, rare request, and patient will need to come and pick up the script. Okay. Now, what's even more important, you guys, is that these are Kirk Johnson's phone records for the 14th. And I did you the liberty of right here at 12:41, Kirk Johnson contacts the dentist, Dr. Boo. Here at 1:03, Kirk gets an incoming call from Dr. Schulenberg, two of them, in fact, at 1:03. One of them he hung up, and then he called back and left a 31-second voicemail. So Kirk did not contact Dr. Schulenberg on the 14th. Dr. Schulenberg contacted Kirk because those calls were incoming. After Kirk placed the outgoing call to Sarah Boo, the dentist, shortly thereafter, 15 minutes later, Dr. Schulenberg called in. Okay, so more lies. Now, here's an image of what they say is the Walgreens that shows Kirk picking up the clonidine, they said. At the bottom there, it says that Prince's assistant was filling 2 prescriptions within hours because he left supposedly the appointment, mid-appointment, to go get the clonidine. Okay, why'd you do that? But anyway, this doesn't look like Kirk, and he has a pink purse. Just saying. Okay, so you guys, investigators also found a CVS prescription pill container that contained 10 white round pills. They were the prescription that Dr. Boo wrote, the acetaminophen codeine. But the fact of the matter is, this says the prescription pill container showed that the prescriber was blankety blank and was dated on 4/19/16, not 14, not the 14th like the file says. Listen, the 14th has the participant Kirk picking up medication at Walgreens. This evidence is saying that that same pills that he picked up on the 14th was written on the 19th and was in a CVS prescription pill container. So they were using both Walgreens and CVS. That's my point. Investigators located a second CVS pill container, which contained 33 blue-green capsules that were stamped with the C39. They identified them as clindamycin. Now, blue-green capsules, you guys, that's what I was saying back here. They took Kirk's pills, clindamycin even, put them in these and tried to tell us that Prince Rogers Nelson was a junkie and died. Okay? Going to keep moving along. 14th and the 19th. Now, notice this, that there is a Dr. Michael T. Schulenberg. And the prescription is written in the name Michael Schulenberg. 2 doctors, 2 people. Okay? Everybody has a dual identity, you guys, and they're playing some really nasty games. All the drugs are in Kirk's name. The suitcase that they said was Prince's based on the lyrics even had the name Peter Bravestrong on it. Come on, okay? Now, this is truly important because this cuts to some of the phone records on what they say was the 21st. We're told that Kirk makes an outgoing call at 7:49 and then again at 7:51 at Paisley Park. That they got to Paisley Park, that he was looking for Prince, and at 7:49 he called the bedroom, and then at 7:51 he called the kitchen. Then there was nothing until 9:10. Okay, but Dr. Schulenberg tells us in his testimony, he says, I received a couple texts from Kirk that came, oh, I'm going to skim right here. And so then I went into the office, arrived at my office, and about 8:15 finished my documentation on the note and asked Kirk if he was still in town. Kirk texted me back, as you can see here. I'm still waiting for him to wake up to give him something to take the edge off. And the other doctor, I presume he's referring to, Andrew, who's not a medical doctor, is in town to help. So what I'm saying is the testimony tells us that Kirk called the kitchen and the bedroom at 7:49 and 7:51. Dr. Schulenberg tells us that at 8:15 he texted Kirk, and Kirk said he was waiting for him to wake up to give him something to take the edge off. So again, conspiracies all over the place. It's not mine, it's theirs. Now, what's interesting too, you guys, is this is some documentation about the Walgreens evidence. They want us to believe that TMZ promoted that Prince was pacing around trying to get his drugs. Well, Detective so-and-so tells us that in the email that he received, the video that he got was from a Walgreens located at 7845 Portland Avenue in the city of Bloomington, Minnesota. Okay, that the date of that video was 4/14, the date the Percocet was filled. Stay with me. On 4/14, there is Walgreens evidence of someone picking up the Percocet, but it's not in Minnesota, it's in Bloomington, okay? The second video is from a Walgreens located at 4950 County Road 101, Minnetonka, okay? In this video, Kirk, he fills the prescriptions during Prince's doctor visit with Dr. Schulenberg, so we're to assume that's the 20th, at 5:17:49 military time, so 5:49, and he's by himself, okay? The last video is from the same Walgreens in Minnetonka an hour later at 19:04, which is 7:04. So they want us to believe that Kirk took Prince to the doctor on the 20th. And at 5:49, he left the appointment. He went to go pick up some clonidine. Dr. Schulenberg testifies that he gave IV fluids, clonidine in the office, hydroxine in the office, Valium. So what I'm saying is crucially important to know that this first video in Bloomington, Minnesota, the 14th, Bloomington is really, really important, you guys, because Omar Baker, Kirk's cousin or nephew, excuse me. According to the crime scene log, there is a Sean Powell who arrived on scene at 1:03. Omar Baker and his wife arrived on his blah, blah, blah. Located Sean David Powell with the physical description of 6 foot 350 and an address of 7802 West 111th Street, Bloomington, Minnesota. So Sean Powell is Kirk Johnson's nephew, who I believe was picking up drugs for him and doing bodyguard stuff for him and doing lots of other things for him. And the fact that they're both in Bloomington, as well as some other information that I will share with you shortly as being in Bloomington, It'll make the connections for you. Now, when you guys read the file, if you read the 214 pages that are available online, at the end of that file, there's the Paul Poldutsky file. He is sold in the media as the former Glam Slam manager, realtor. And what this says is Paul Poldutsky's drug overdose in Minnetonka. On 1/9/16, I learned about a fentanyl drug overdose that occurred in Minnetonka on June 18th, 2016. For you that weren't listening, it says it. On 1/9/16, I learned about a fentanyl overdose that occurred on June 18th, 2016. How did you learn on 1/9 about an overdose that occurred on June 18th? It shows you so clearly how they are cutting and pasting this file and lying about everything in it. Okay? More importantly, or equally as important, I should say, says here, in speaking to DEA Officer Voller on 1/25/17, he stated he did not have any way to track the number of fentanyl deaths in Minnesota over the past year, but he was able to say that they did not have any other fentanyl deaths in pill form in Minnesota other than Prince, or he would have been notified. Now, it's funny that the longtime substance abuse expert for Minnesota, Carol Fakowski, she said that fentanyl-related fatalities are sudden, swift, and surging. In Hennepin County alone, they've tripled in 2 years. Statewide, there were 36 last year. This is just a really strong drug, and a little bit can kill you. So why was Carol Fakowski able to tell us that there were 36 overdoses in Hennepin County alone, yet Mr. Mike Voller, or Detective Voller, didn't have any way to track the fentanyl deaths in Minnesota over the last year? Because he was lying. That's why. Now, county prosecutors, along with U.S. Attorney Office, have made it a priority to hold drug suppliers accountable. And just last month, law enforcement in Hennepin County made the largest fentanyl bust not only in the state, but the country. Nearly 3/4 of a gallon was seized from a home in Bloomington. Bloomington is where the pharmacy was, where Kirk Sean was seen picking up the Percocet on the 14th. Bloomington is where Sean Powell's address is. Bloomington is where 3/4 of a gallon of fentanyl was seized, largest bust in the country. And moreover, Sean Powell's address was also, I thought I had that right here. I do, but I didn't clip it in, my bad. Sean Powell's address is also 7802 West 101st Street, Bloomington, Minnesota. So when they did the 3/4 of a bust of fentanyl in Bloomington, and Kirk was the one with all the drugs in his name, and his Aunt Charlene was retrieving the drugs from her house, and they were writing drugs on the 14th and the 19th. And there's 2 Andrew Kornfelds who had drugs not only on his person, but in his backpack. You have Phadrae's keys. You have the NPG articles of incorporation. But you know what? The fact of the matter is, you guys, we don't even know who they're talking about anymore, because, as we all know, the media sells that Prince Rogers Nelson, with an S, Prince Rogers Nelson, was born 6/7/58, died 4/21/2016. That's what they want us to believe. Yet, if you open up the Beautiful Ones book and look at the bottom, it says Prince Roger Nelson on the birth certificate. Also, when you take the time to go into the Carver County records to look up the name Prince Rogers Nelson, what you're going to get is Nelson, Prince Rogers, Prince R. Nelson, Prince Rogers Nelson. Definitely 3 different identities. As well, you have something in here which I found interesting, because it says something about Prince R. Nelson in the estate of John Lewis Nelson, but Lewis here is spelled Louis. I've also seen the dad's middle name spelled Lewis. So again, who are we talking about? Nobody knows who died, and that's the thing. Now, this is the administrative subpoena for the DEA, also noting the name Prince Roger. Here's some truly interesting this is based on the Freedom of Information Act, DEA paperwork, that here you can see that it says Nelson Prince. People can say, so what, last name first, but the fact is it's spelled Prince. It says he's 61 years old, born 6/7/1954. His race and ethnicity are not available. Also interesting to note that it says that they spent approximately, I think, 12 minutes with this person being transported by ambulance. Yet a detective officer so-and-so tells us he spent 20 minutes with Prince on the tarmac. So we know we're talking about 2 different, 3 different, 4 different people. Who knows? Anyway, they have this Prince weighing 110 pounds. Okay, again, the 61-year-old Prince with the X, he weighs 110 pounds. And his IV was placed in his right extremity. That's what that says. 61-year-old Prince had his IV in his right extremity. There it is, right arm, at 126. This Prince, of course, different birth date, 6/7/1959. Still not 1958. Now, this Prince over here, they're 5'4" and 117 pounds. Prince Nelson is a 56-year-old male, allegedly took 3 pills of Percocet and 1 identified pill, became unresponsive on his flight. Now, it's important to note that this Prince, this patient that took the Percocet, when they did his hospital paperwork, historical medications entered this encounter. Oxycodone, Percocet, blah, blah, blah. The same Percocet that was found in the black bag, which was carried by Kirk and seen on video and placed in the other bottle and called Prince's. Anyway, no hospital is going to enter the historical medication as oxycodone unless... See, because we know the oxycodone was placed in Kirk's name because Dr. Schulenberg said he got it, Kirk said he got it, and then they put it in Prince's name, but the hospital put it on the paperwork. That kind of doesn't make any sense unless Kirk had identification saying he was Prince. Know what I'm saying? Anywho's, this patient, IV site was left arm, not right. Now, what's interesting too, discussed with the patient that the bottle that contained the mystery pills is a Bayer bottle, nearly entirely filled with pills, which are not aspirin. We'll send one to the pharmacist. That was Dr. Mancha sending the pill to the pharmacist, and they looked at it and said, yep, looks like a Vicodin, and sent it right back. Okay, that was the story. So on the list of evidence here again, you have the 853 Watson pills from the Bayer bottle, the Ondansetron HCl 8 milligrams from Kirk's, the CVS Kirk's. Everything was Kirk's, so just stop. Also, the medication says if you traveled outside the U.S., they went outside, yes, because they were in Canada. Well, again, with the Moline Airport being a port of entry for the U.S., also, again, Prince Nelson, 6/7/59. And what's interesting, too, is the identification. The MRN number, 963-13876, is different than the number on the other paperwork. And then it says prescriptions. No prescriptions found for this encounter. 4/15/2016. They gave IV and said goodbye. Now, also, what's interesting, you guys, is this is Trinity Health System Quad City's radio report. So when the hospital got the radio report, they supposedly took a note at 150. But if you look back here at this one that I showed you, it says that they did this at 126. Okay. So again, if the identity changes aren't enough for you, well, there's all this other info. I just like to show you all the evidence. That's all. I mean, this isn't even all of it, but we're getting there. Look, history reviewed, no pertinent past medical history, no pertinent past surgical history. Smoking, no. Alcohol, yes. So, no surgical history, very, very interesting. Now, even worse, you guys, it gets worse. The paperwork goes on to show us that there was scanned documents, as somebody used Unity Point online to do their work. So they even got a Unity Point access code that expired on 6/14/2016. Now, let me tell you something. If your hospital or you're going online, say you're going to a Ready Care or whatever, and they give you an access code to check your paperwork, they're not going to let that access code last that long, because, somebody else could, you risk your security. So the fact that this one expires 6/14/2016 is really, really interesting. It shows you how they mixed and sliced the dice the paperwork, because I don't think those last for more than 24 hours, if you ask me. Also, it says here, Unity Point support. It says my Unity Point is not to be used for urgent needs. Somebody did something online. They scanned in their signatures, and it says if you have a problem, call 911. Yada yada yada. And then this is provided again from the Freedom of Information Act, DEA. This person typed in, I know why I was in the hospital. I know what I need to do when I get home. I have a copy of these papers. And then this says, please take this after visit summary to all of your post-discharge follow-up appointments. Best copy available. It's interesting that somebody wrote those 3 short little statements. Just leave it at that. Again, I think that was just saying that the DEA, Minnesota monitoring, which would be the legal way of doing it, asked for Prince Rogers Nelson, and there was no prescriptions in his name. Pharmacy bag for the 14th and 19th. Oops, wrong one. I want to go back to the identity. My bad, you guys. What I'm saying is, if you've watched the other videos, you know that I'm always talking about the breakdown. Here is a nice little collage where you can see a respirator being carried by Dr. Schulenberg. This, Kirk, let me show you something. Kirk is very short, about probably 5'4". These are all women, and he barely is above them, okay? So he is a very short little dude and could very easily lose a lot of weight and look like somebody else. I know that there's this little picture being promoted of Prince as a child, but guess who this is, and guess who he sure looks a lot like? Anyway, you can look at these 2 pictures side by side, see the nose job. This is Kirk's nose a long time ago. My voice is getting higher. I ain't never had my nose done. Ha, ha. All the purple hippies bang your heads on the what? Anywho, sorry, somebody was calling me and it distracted me. Very, very short, you guys. And what's interesting too is this person who is shown to be protecting the so-called Prince look-alike is not a little short, fit dude. He's got a way bigger, chunky face, a bigger nose than Kirk. You can see Kirk is slimmer. Okay, he's got a more chiseled chin. This just goes on to show how you can see the identity if you look real close. Now, also, you guys, here's the famous passport photo. Okay, see the black jacket? Famous passport photo. But look at this picture. You think that that's Prince Rogers Nelson? Look at this little Buddha belly. Look at the jacket. It's the same jacket. Now look at who else. And look, in the dyed hair and fat. No, Prince ain't never looked like that. Never. So you have this giant dude, but you also have Natalia Phillips. She's a model lookalike who claims, 70% of Kirk's phone calls were to her for, I believe it was March through April of 2016. She claims that she was in Prince's 3121 video. She has vocal training, acting. She plays ping pong. She's done police training videos. She was not only in the 3121, she claimed print work for Piano and a Microphone tour. Okay. So there's another lookalike. There it is, Piano and a Microphone tour. This is her print work. Million Days, 3121. So they were obviously using her a lot for lookalike. I think this is a pretty good, it can be anybody. You guys, the fact that I'm saying there's a body double isn't that hard to believe, because you and I both know that when, look at, here's this was a close-up of when supposedly Prince went on Arsenio. I did a close-up of him smiling. That's him. This is Kirk's daughter, Kayla. Okay, look how much they look alike, and look how much their teeth and nose and everything else looks alike. Okay, it's a fact. Now, I know that you'll recognize that as George Floyd, but that's because I believe that George Floyd and Sean Powell, Kirk's nephew, were basically the same description. And I find it truly interesting that George Floyd's name came to be popular at the beginning of COVID and I Can't Breathe 2020, etc. Just putting that out there. If you want to make somebody disappear. Now, what's truly interesting too, you guys, is this is an email from Detective Adam Hastings, and it says, it was sent, on April 28th, 2016, so a week after. I was asked to download the squad video from the medical call on 4/21/2016 at about 9:43. I looked at the arbitrator 360 and I'm unable to download the video for the incident. The information was requested by Detective Meyer and blah, blah, blah. Could you please download the video, yada, yada. The point is, there's a video of the medical event for the 21st that nobody's ever seen. We were told